So today is December 21st, 2021, and it is the shortest daylight day of the year. And it got me to thinking a little bit this morning as I woke up at 5 o'clock and was just doing some reflecting and thinking about the last kind of season of life that I've just come through. One of the things that I came across was a journal that I was keeping in 2020, and just realizing how brutal the year was, and I know it was for a lot of people. So I'm not alone in that. There was just a lot going on with COVID, and then also just trying to build a house in the middle of a pandemic. And all of the craziness that was going on. But there was a particular writing that stuck out to me, and really it kind of felt like the turning point. It was kind of like that winter solstice moment in my life in 2020. And as I was reflecting, as I was reading back through the things that I had written there, it really just stuck out to me, and I wanted to share it with you because I think that it speaks to where a lot of us are at times, just that feeling of aloneness, and where are you, God, in the middle of the duty and the daily responsibilities that I have. But there are times like August the 18th that just stand out. I wrote, "I woke up this morning with a strange and wonderful sense of grace. God came to me in the night. I don't remember it all, and I can't exactly tell how, but he was there." The song that came to me as I awoke was, "Oh Love That Will Not Let Me Go." There is a powerful struggle going on right now, but as I awoke, it was as if the scales had been tipped heavily in favor of good and right. I can't explain it. I did not do it, whatever it was, but it was as if someone, somewhere, was interceding for me, powerfully bringing my case to the Father. I woke up with tears in my eyes and a peace in my heart. And as I stepped out of bed and knelt to pray, I heard his voice. He has not let me go, and I don't believe he will. I need so much help, and I see the places where I fall and fail glaringly clear. I don't trust my own ability to help myself. I know my only hope is grace, grace that is greater than all my sin. As I emerge from the long, dark place where my soul has resided these past few weeks, I came forth a wiser man. I've taken on too much, but God is helping me to live one day at a time, finishing the next circuit, making the next call, and stopping along the way to rest, to read, to write, to reflect, to date my wife, to love my children, and to know that God is my provider. As I was reflecting on that and thinking about how God provided, later on in my post I said, while I wonder if the house will ever be finished, I know that it will. God has led us step by step and taught me many lessons of trust. And then this is the line that just stuck out to me. It is not just about building a house. It is about building my faith. Seeing God provide so lovingly for our family, I'm learning to step into that, not presumptuously, but confidently. If God can provide a house with enough space to share, could he not also give us the fireplace that we want? Of course he can. Striking the balance of stewardship and spending on what we truly would like to have has been a challenge, but God is helping me to trust him. You know, as I was thinking about it and there were a lot of challenging things that came before this, and I don't necessarily need to go into all of the difficulties of 2020. Everybody has their version of it. But as I look after that, it was less than a month later that God sent Brother Dale and Venita Reynolds to Victory Acres, just really out of the blue. They felt God directing them there, and there was just so much good that was and has been accomplished in that year or a year and a half almost now since then. And I look back on that moment, and I have no idea who was praying. I know somebody was, and I know that I was not in a place to help myself, but it was as if God in His infinite wisdom and grace was just pouring this amazing life into me in that moment. And as I was reading that this morning and remembering what that was like, I just wanted to share that because, I think if we're really honest, and sometimes, we sing songs and now I am happy all the day, and perhaps we should be, but I think in terms of where most of us live, there are those ups and downs. There are those places where the darkness just seems really, really dark, and we don't feel like we're ever going to get out. And I don't think that's something that's unique to me, but it is in those moments that God teaches us things, and that many times He pours grace in. And on every December 21st, just when we think that it can't get any darker, it all changes. And we reach that point where the days begin to get longer finally, and we are heading towards that bright and glorious day and that beautiful time that is summer. And I just wanted to remind you of that. I want to remind myself of that because we do go through seasons. And I remember also another season that we went through in 2012. My wife began to have seizures in August, and then everything just kind of came to a screeching halt in our lives, and a lot of things that had been scheduled and places that I was going to be speaking, all of it just came to a screeching halt. And there were a lot of things in our lives that had been going on up until that time that just were over. It was done. And then we were taking a trip together as a family, the first one really since all that situation began in January. And my daughter, Sarah, who was 7 at that time, had an appendicitis, and it ruptured. And we were 1,000 miles from home in Florida. And I remember standing beside her bed, and after the surgery and everything was over, she was getting worse. She wasn't getting better. And we were spread out as a family between the Ronald McDonald House, where we were trying to keep the rest of the kids occupied and happy, and the hospital there at All Children's Hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida, and trying our best to trust God in the middle of this storm. But it felt for all the world like we were just going to die right there, that it just never was going to get better. And there was just this overwhelming sense of darkness. And I remember reading a book that a friend, Ryan Colson, shared with me called Spiritual Rhythms. And I can't even remember the author's name now. I'll have to look that up. But it really spoke to me because he goes through the spiritual life and just kind of talks about the different seasons and compares them to the seasons that we go through physically in life. And when I got to the chapter on winter, and he references Psalms 88, And he says, winter is that time where everything feels dead and where it just feels like there's nothing happening. I just sat down and began to cry because it was where I was. This is it. But it is in winter that God does so many amazing things, and it is winter that allows certain things to happen that are desperately needed. And that pruning process and the destruction of so many pests that would otherwise overtake the ecosystem are, put down. That it's an important time. It's a time where certain crops can grow that need the cold. Things like wheat and garlic, and without winter. And without the processes that happen during winter, the production, the life that you really need is hindered. And, we emerged from that winter time, different people. I had been just, pedal to the metal. Let's go. There's no stopping. Let's just keep moving forward. And God just pruned my tree. And there were lots of things that I really didn't need to be doing that I was doing that suddenly just got completely whacked off, just cut completely. And here I am, back to why am I here? Who am I? And where do we need to go next? And it really put a lot of things in perspective. There was a lot of, busyness in my life that really didn't need to be there at all. And there were a lot of other things that, I thought were just completely important, that when the reality of the situation hit, I realized weren't, and they needed to go. And we emerged from that time wiser, better, more compassionate, much more aware of what other people who were going through circumstances might be feeling than we would before. And it's not the last winter that we've been through, but it was the first great winter that we experienced. And it was an important time. It was an important shaping time in my life. And I realized as I was reading through that journal today that 2020 was a similar kind of shaping experience, and that God brought us out of that and through that to a deeper understanding of what He's doing here at Victory Acres and in our family and our lives, and is bringing us into a different season. And He's been faithful through it all. And so I think that's one of the things that I wanted to share today was that, it really doesn't matter whether or not you feel productive or you feel like you are really, quote unquote, making a difference. The important thing is that we are faithful in the season that we are in, that we are continuing to just seek God, whether we feel Him or not, that we continue to do the right thing, but that we don't do that alone. That God in His grace pours into our life at moments when we don't deserve it. We haven't done anything to bring it about, and yet in powerful ways He just shows up and does things that only He can do. And it's an exciting thing to be reminded of that grace, that unmerited favor, is really at the end of the day what makes the Christian life possible. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. John Newton wrote, but it's grace that's brought me safe thus far. And it's grace that will lead me home. I remember a few years ago, I was always having great conversations with my Baptist brother and a friend in Indianapolis. Brother Jerry Whited would drive our church bus, and he had a Damascus Road experience in his life. And his conversion experience was that he was driving down the road as a godless trucker, doing absolutely nothing to seek God, and God just showed up in his cab and saved him, really, almost against his will. To hear his story was just an amazing example of God showing up. He told me, so, I wasn't praying, I wasn't going to church, I wasn't doing anything, and God just came into that truck and he saved me, Brother Eric. And it was a powerful story, and he told it to everybody, and he was always sharing that story. And of course, on the Arminian and Calvinist debate, we had many discussions about whether or not you could lose your salvation. But Jerry was a great counterbalance to me in that he emphasized grace like probably no one I've ever met. And again and again, as we would be having these sort of theological discussions, he would just say to me, I don't know, Brother Eric, I don't know. I just believe that Jesus is going to get me to heaven. And that was kind of the end of the argument. How do you argue with that? First of all, you shouldn't, but that's the truth. It's the truth for any of us. If any of us are going to make it to heaven, it's going to be because Jesus got us there. It's going to be because of grace showing up in our lives when we least expected it, least deserved it, and it is God who works in us both to will and to do of his good pleasure. And it doesn't take away our personal responsibility. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a Wesleyan Arminian. I haven't abandoned that. But I just think that many times I have not overly emphasized grace. I have not, in my own life, overly emphasized it because, there's a piece of me that still thinks that we should really just do our best, and that God's going to use that. And there's an element of truth in that. There's a piece of that needs to be emphasized. I get that. But there is also grace that just shows up when we don't have anything that would merit us receiving it. And that kind of grace is more and more, I see, the essence of a gospel that is not just try to do better and Jesus can help, but it is grace that saves us. It is grace that keeps us, and it ultimately is grace that's going to get us home. And we need God's grace. And in the middle of all of our trying and striving and endeavoring to do what we can, I need to be reminded, I guess, if nobody else does, that it is God's grace that makes the difference. And I'm thankful for that today. So that was just what I wanted to share with you on this darkest day of 2021. That God's grace is still enough.